Okay, welcome everyone. It is Tuesday night as usual. That means it's time for Dean Legge to talk Georgia football here with you. I really appreciate our friends at Bank South. This is the Dean Legge Show presented by Bank South. I want to thank our friends at Bank South for presenting the broadcast. Bank South is a locally owned bank that can help you meet your needs no matter what they are. If that's a CD, the perfect mortgage, Bank South is a community-based bank here in Georgia that you can trust. We trust Bank South. You should too. So go in and give them a shot. They're in the Atlanta area with mortgages. They're obviously in Watkinsville, Savannah, all over the state. If you don't know about Bank South, just leave something in the timeline. I will answer the questions to get you the right person. We really do appreciate their support. They have helped us bring you all a lot of coverage thus far this season. And tonight we're going to talk about Georgia and Vanderbilt. These are the Bank South keys to the game. I'm going to go straight into it here. Not a lot of goofing around. First of all, last week I said one of the keys to the game was taking Tennessee seriously. I got the feeling during the game that a lot of people were not taking Tennessee seriously, including Tennessee. I was listening to some folks that work for the Vols in the press box upstairs when I was in the restroom up there. Pre-game stuff for me can be pretty nuts. But I was in the Georgia press box at the beginning of the game, and I think everybody thought it was just going to be a straight-up blowout. It turned into a blowout, but it took a little bit of time to get there. This week, in our Bank South keys to the game, I would say there's no excuse for Georgia not to jump on Vanderbilt very fast. And, what does that mean? Why does it matter to jump on the Vanderbilt Commodores as fast as you can? Well, one big thing is you want to give them no hope. They really did not play well this past week in Nashville. They barely survived Tennessee State, if I'm not mistaken. I think they won by 5, whatever it was. So that's not ideal. And I think that although they played pretty well against Notre Dame, they nearly beat Notre Dame. They lost that game by 5. They have since not played so hot. Let me just recap. They beat Middle Tennessee State, I believe on the road 35-7. Then they come back home to Memorial Stadium, I think it is. I think it's Vanderbilt Stadium, excuse me. So they win that game 41-10. Then they really lost a game they probably should have won against Vanderbilt, 22-7 up there in South Bend. Then they get blown out by South Carolina, 37-14 in a game that was, I think, 14-all or 17-all, whatever it was. And then last week just did not play well against Tennessee State, a team there in Nashville. They almost lost that game. They only won it by 4. So I would argue you want to jump on Vanderbilt as fast as you can and get them, down by a touchdown, something going into the second quarter. After that, I think it's going to be tough for Vanderbilt to stick around in this game. They are a significant underdog. This line is not as big as the Tennessee line, but it's pretty big nonetheless. Let me just check it right now. Vanderbilt is a 20. Well, it depends where you look, but between a 26 and a 27-point underdog to Georgia. So that's pretty significant. That's a pretty significant line. I would say if you're Georgia, you really want to be done with this game by the end of the third quarter. This is the final game before a 4-game stretch against 4 ranked teams, 3 of which are in the top, I believe, 13. So this is a game. It's a night game, so you lose a little bit of the day to rest and recover. But if I were Georgia, I'd want to be done with this thing sooner than later. We'll just see how that progresses. Again, I know I've really, been very pro-Georgia against these lines, and it doesn't always turn out that way. I would be surprised if this game's not over by about 35 minutes into it. So about 5 or 10 minutes into the third quarter. And then finally, and I do think this is an important one, Georgia needs to get Jake Fromm right and play Justin Fields. You got to do both things at the same time. Jake has not quite been himself, it doesn't seem like of late. And that's not ideal. So a lot of that's the offensive line. They've got to protect better than they are, or they have, I should say. But, you know, Jake Fromm, everybody wants to see Jake Fromm get back to the way that he's been. So we'll just see how that goes. I think that's a really critical thing. I want to thank everybody who is watching right now on social media, whether you are on Facebook, you getting Jake Fromm back in working order, so to speak, if you want to call it that, would be a good thing. It's not like Georgia, generally speaking, has played bad. They haven't. They played pretty well. But there have been times lately where, you know, they've not been as crisp as maybe you would like them to be. They've not been as dominant on offense, if you will, if you'd like to, as much as you'd like them to be. It's not been, you know, a perfect ride. Now, this is sports, so these things happen, and I'm plugging the power into my computer just because I'm weird like that. But you know, overall, there's only 4 teams, if my math is correct, who have played Division I college football and have won by double digits every time. 3 of them are in the SEC, which is Alabama, Georgia, and Kentucky. So, you know, this stretch here now from Georgia, they will play some good teams. They got Vanderbilt, obviously. Then they're on the road in Nashville, in Baton Rouge. I bet you they wish they were on the road in Nashville. So it goes Vanderbilt at home, at LSU. Then they get a week off for the Gators. And then after that, they will play at Kentucky, which is going to be a real fight. And then they will host Auburn. It might be that, I mean, this is going to sound strange, and I reserve the right to just sit here and watch Kentucky over these next week or two. If they don't beat Texas A&M on the road, you know, maybe you scale it back a little bit. If they beat Texas A&M on the road, it's very possible that the second most complicated game Georgia plays this season is in Lexington. And you know, I have been up there plenty of times. I think the first time I went up was in 98. I know the first time I went up was in 98. You know, they barely won that game. They barely won in 2000. They won a shootout in 2002, kind of blew out Kentucky. 2004, they blew them out. That was not a good Kentucky team. Obviously, they lose in 2006. Kentucky brings down the goalpost. 2008, they had to survive. 2010, Georgia, you know, kind of pushed past them. Georgia barely, and this was a good Georgia team in 2012. They had to have Aaron Murray, and he delivered that night. If he did not deliver, Georgia loses to Kentucky, not a good Kentucky team in 2012. 2014, they blow them out. 2016, obviously, they had to kick a game winner with, you know, on the last play of the game. So playing in Lexington, it always seems like it's going to be an easy game. Well, I can assure you, it always isn't. And I don't know what it is, other than the fact that it's a road game in conference play, and that's what you're going to get in 2 weeks or 10 days with LSU. These teams know each other. I mean, obviously, Georgia and Kentucky know one another well. They play every single season. The kids know each other. Plenty of kids from Georgia at Kentucky. They're not going to be intimidated by Georgia. And the biggest thing is Benny Snell is a heck of a player for the Cats. I do wonder if, you know, I mean, I think Benny probably needs more than just him. Let me try to answer one question here from Facebook. I got LASIK about 6 years ago, so let me see how well I'm doing here. Do you think Jamari Saylor is going to get some playing time with the offensive line struggling with injuries? No, I don't. And here's the reason why. That's a very good question. I think we are halfway through the season, and I think I say no. I think we're halfway through the season, and if it's going to happen, it better happen soon. They seem to be in good position with 6 of their offensive linemen, really 7 actually now, 6 with Ben being hurt. I think Kendall Baker had a very good 2017. His 2018 has not been unbelievable. You know, Jamari not being here sooner hurt. And I think if he would have been here quicker, that would have helped. But it didn't happen. I believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that he was a guy that came in during the spring. So if he had, it did not come during the spring, excuse me. If he were here during the spring, it might have made a difference. But they just seem kind of settled on what they're dealing with. I mean, Trey Hill maybe could get a look on the inside. They've got guys. There's no question about that. They got plenty of guards. What you don't want to lose are tackles. So, you know, so long as Andrew Thomas is doing fine, Isaiah Wilson, or those two guys are doing fine, you get Ben Cleveland back probably for, well, I don't know about Kentucky, but he will play by the end of the season for sure. So it's not like all is lost on that offensive line. But they're not playing unbelievably well like they have in the past. And as I've said before many times, if you watch the Bank South, the Dean Legge show sponsored by Bank South, you know this very well. If Jake Fromm is given time, he really is a deadly quarterback. I would say he is more deadly than most given time because that's his ball game. If he's not given the ability to go through his progressions, he's not, you know, he's not as killer as he is when he does. So I just, you know, I think they've got to figure out the offensive line. We turned around the other day, and all of a sudden Georgia had racked up 250 yards. They had, you know, they had 100 yards rushing in the fourth quarter. Well, that counts. I mean, that matters. 150 is not a bad day running the ball. Now, if you're Georgia, you'd like to have more like 200 because that's who you are. But that you know, 150 is not the end of the world against the Auburns or Alabamas of the world. Certainly against Alabama, that'd be ideal. But the fourth quarter matters. It counts. It totally, you know, it all adds up. And, you know, you turned around at the end of the game, there were 250 yards for Georgia rushing, and you're like, well, I don't even remember them really having a big play, because they didn't. They had a bunch of 10 and 15-yard plays. It turns out they ran for something like 5 or 6 yards a carry. I mean, that's plenty. The passing game was sufficient. So they really could have played better on offense. This is 2 weeks in a row they could have played better on offense. But, you know, sports are not made easy. Sometimes your opponent makes you hit backhands, and it's your job to get around that sort of stuff. It's up to you. It's up to the coaches and the players. And this week, the coaches and players will kick off at 7:30. So a night game finally in Athens. Finally, the Rock has come to Athens. October 6, 2018, as you can see there, 7:30 on the SEC Network. This game will not be a metered game. So that means that Georgia will not get credit in terms of how many viewers watch it. My guess would be it would only be about 1.5 million people anyway. So I don't know that it would be a ton. If you missed earlier today on what we were hearing on Dog Post, which a lot of people read that, so I'm not sure how many of y'all actually really missed it. It's a good example of what sort of content you get on Dog Post. You know, insider information. Sometimes it's really interesting. Sometimes it's just sort of information dump that we have. Dog Post is $1 for the first month. You should check it out. It's $15 after that, unless you're an annual subscriber, and it's $11 a month. So I really wholeheartedly would encourage you to take a look at Dog Post. If you want to buy it, that's awesome. If you want to just read the stuff that I write, that usually stuff that I write is free with the exception of some very, you know, sort of exclusive proprietary information, please just check us out. You have no obligation to buy, but if you want to check it out, it's $1. You know, and I think it's a really good deal. I know if I did not run Dog Post, I would definitely subscribe to it. And the reason why is because it's not that expensive, and if you're really into fandom, it's a great place to be. There's a lot of good places out there too, but I think Dog Post is very unique. Someone is talking about Zamir, so Zamir White, who was lost at the beginning of the year. I don't have any real new updates on Zamir other than to sort of assume that things are going well. And the reason I assume that is because I've not heard anything bad. And typically when you hear something bad, you know, something bad happens, you typically hear about it. Something good, people don't say so much about that normally. If you're just joining us on Facebook, I appreciate you being here. We're going to get everything sort of squared away with your broadcast here soon. We do this. I do this every Sunday and Tuesday nights. You can listen to this on Facebook. You can listen to this on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I put it on iTunes. You can go to Dog Post and listen to it on SoundCloud, blah, 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 blah. If you've not had enough of me. I've been doing this for 18 years. Been a Heisman voter since 2005. So I've been covering Georgia for some time now. And I would say nothing surprises me, but then inevitably things do. I don't know what surprised me this season, though, so far. That's a good question. More screenplays people want. Well, that would have gone for a long... That really would have been a touchdown, it looked like to me. But the ball was a little short, which is, but you got to catch it. So it was just two not ideal plays by guys. Why doesn't someone update me here on what the score is of the baseball game? Because I knocked out the score. I don't really watch... Do y'all watch a lot of baseball? I really do not. But the postseason is fascinating to me. When I was a teenager, I used to clean up Atlanta Fulton County Stadium in order to pay for AAU basketball. I played AAU basketball with the Atlanta Lakers, Atlanta Celtics now. And we would clean up Atlanta Fulton County Stadium in order to pay for the trips that we made all over the place. So I got really hooked on the Braves. Obviously, when I was younger, very young, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, there was nothing to do. At least it felt that way. So we would go watch the Braves lose. And boy, did they lose. Non-stop. Non-stop. How many of y'all will go to the game? That's what I'm wondering this weekend. It's a homecoming weekend in Athens, which usually means a very lackadaisical crowd. It usually means a lot of pictures with UGA, old cheerleaders getting in the way, which is never a lot of fun. It's interesting to me that they permit the, thank you for the baseball update there. It's interesting to me they permit some of these older cheerleaders onto the field because it actually is quite dangerous on the field. It doesn't seem like it, but I can assure you, after 18 years and almost getting run over by Isaiah Crowell one time, and almost getting knocked over 2 weeks ago at Missouri, you better watch it when you're on the sidelines. And when you all see these old-timers get out there with their trumpets, and particularly people in wheelchairs, they should be as far back. If they're going to be on the field, it should be as far back as possible. That is, that's not good. Here's a question. What things would we learn about you, Dean, if you had to be asked a question from the Senate committee? I don't think, unfortunately and fortunately, and I think a lot of the people that I went to high school and college with can confirm this, I had a rather dull experience in high school for sure. I was too busy playing sports. In college was the same way. So I was a two-sport guy for 2 years and one-sport guy for 4 years. And so there wasn't a lot of time to goof off and get in trouble with dumb stuff. I'll say this about my college experience. I went to a very small college. We almost all of us played sports. 40% of us played sports. Some of the stuff that I've seen, it was just not common for that to occur where I went to college. But I realized I was in a small place with a lot of guys and girls who had other things on their mind. But the world has changed, thankfully. And the worst thing I ever did probably in high school was skip school, but my mother caught me when I was coming home, so that was not ideal. In college, we did plenty of dumb things in college, but nothing close to what's being alleged out there in the world right now. But everybody just needs to be safe and take care of one another. This game, let's see, the Rockies and Cubs are at 1-0. Georgia and Vanderbilt. Does anyone anticipate that? Does anybody anticipate the Vanderbilt Georgia game being halfway close? Because I'm not sure I do. I'm not sure I do. Here's a good point. Here's a good point on YouTube. I will say this. I am extremely excited and proud that there were no social medias that existed I mean, we did dumb enough stuff in college that I'm glad that there were only photographs. We did have videos. We still have videos. Now, we didn't do anything absolutely stupid, but some of the stuff that we said, I definitely would never say now. I don't know if I would have said it, 2 years after college. So it certainly is a learning time, but there are certain things that you just kind of, you just don't want to do and say. I can talk about the Justin Fields situation if you want, and the allegations there. Saying that word publicly is not acceptable, period. Saying it in that situation is bizarre to me. I don't get that. I remember being in class at Georgia discussing some of this stuff. I went to graduate school at Georgia for public administration. It's #3 program in the country. And nothing prepares you for when there's all sorts of stuff you can do in school, but when nothing prepares you for that, first time someone says a racial slur behind closed doors, that's a public official. You don't know what? You're like, what? So there was a lot of growing up and learning. There's definitely still a real world out there. You can't say that, period. I mean, it's just not something that you do. I don't. That's it. And there's nothing really else to say for me to add about it. Justin is not the first black kid to be called that, black man to be called that. And if I were him, I would completely ignore it and move on about my day, because that shouldn't define who Justin is. I don't know Justin Fields very well, if at all. But really, our tone in society has got to improve, period. It just has to improve. It's up to all of us. But that's not what this program is about. It's about, Georgia. I mean, speaking of Justin, I think he does need to play more, if for no other reason for development. He is a super gifted kid. He can just do stuff that other people can't do. It's pretty amazing, actually, how gifted he is. But, and the same token, Jake Fromm is the starting quarterback. I don't see that changing anytime soon. They both, there were times when Jake, it took Jake last year a little time to get rolling. They have been more productive early in this season with the passing game, much more productive than they were last year. But, Jake can play better. And frankly, I keep saying him, but a lot of that is not, a lot. Part of it is not on him. It's not me making excuses. I mean, I've been critical of Jake Fromm. That's okay. I think he's a very good quarterback. He is. But something's not right. And I'm not ready to blame any one person other than maybe this is just a situation where Georgia's not playing well right now. And they will play well in the future. I should have put this in what we're hearing. I forgot. But someone I trust a lot who has been around the program for such a long time said, if they're not playing well and they're winning the way that they are, that's okay, because eventually they will, kind of get rolling again. But last year they really did not go through a 2-game stretch where they didn't play well. Maybe Auburn and South Carolina. I don't know that they didn't play well against South Carolina, but it wasn't long during the season. It might have been, 2 games maybe. I mean, I don't know that they didn't play well. I mean, they didn't play super great against Notre Dame, but understandably, they didn't play well at Auburn. Understandably, got blown out. And there's someone's asking, I think this is a good question. Do you think this is bothering Jake Fromm? I don't know, but he should get over it if it does. I mean, this is what it is. And if Justin's bothered by it, he should get over it. I mean, they both came into this thing, both of them came into this situation knowing that there was an entrenched starter coming while they were coming. And in both cases, it was a guy named Jake Fromm or Jacob Eason. So they both knew what they were getting into. They both are competitive guys. I don't see. I mean, if you are getting bothered by this, you're allowing yourself to get bothered. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but they're going to rotate quarterback a little bit at Georgia. And as Kirby said on Saturday, the plan is there is no plan. I mean, that is first of all, the way he said it was hilarious. But secondly, that is not true. I mean, at least I don't think so. That guy is meticulous with his planning. He is meticulous about everything. I think what he's trying to say, if I could speak for Kirby, it is we don't know exactly when Justin will go in the game. We're not planning for that because we can't plan if we're first and goal from the 7, So he's not fooling me, but he doesn't have to give it away. I mean, when Justin plays, he plays. Here's the thing. For a long time, we heard about how Clemson had a very good quarterback situation. They don't anymore. We heard about Alabama having a very good quarterback situation. Okay. I think, although I think Tua is the best quarterback of the 4 quarterbacks at Georgia and Alabama, I think probably the package of Justin and Jake at Georgia is better than the package of Tua and the now backup at Alabama. Just the only reason why is because, he doesn't hurt you. He never hurt you. Now, Tua can hurt you, but he's a little bit wild. None of these kids are perfect. And so, and the other thing is, if a program was willing, I guess you could say, or moved on without a prospect who clearly looks like a first-round draft pick in terms of potential, why would anyone think their job is safe at any time, injury or not? I mean, we have seen at Georgia, Ben Cleveland from, I think it was after the Auburn game, he started. So, nobody's position is safe, which is, I guess, frightening for the kids, but should be, really a good, if you're a fan, that would be a good thing because that means that you've got kids clawing and scratching and doing as much work as they can to be as prepared as they can just to play. I mean, guys, this is me. I mean, this can be me picking on somebody, but a guy like D'Angelo Gibbs in the past, it would have been hard for him not to play a lot. Now we've seen anybody at Georgia who is not around or ready or whatever you want to call it, they don't play. And that's a 5-star kid. I mean, he's a tremendous talent. He's not playing very much. So it isn't just about physical ability necessarily. It's more than that. It's hard to deny physical ability. That's why Ben Cleveland is there. I mean, because he had a rough first year at Georgia. But eventually, work habits took over, I guess you could say, and Ben has been pretty good since. Him and Isaiah Wilson form a very good duo on that right side. It will be good to get Ben back. He has had a good season. He could be he is a guy that next year could leave early if he plays well. And after his first season at Georgia, it definitely did not feel that way. Not at all. Join us after the game in the stadium. You'll see, it goes straight to YouTube. If you don't follow me on YouTube, then you're making a mistake because we get a lot of content there that is free. It's a big audience. These guys are going nuts talking over here on YouTube. But if you don't follow me there, please do. And then go to dawgpost.com, dawgpost.com. Appreciate Bank South being a sponsor for this. For all your banking needs, go check out banksouth.com today. If you're in the market for a mortgage, rates continue to go up. Might be time to lock in if you haven't locked in yet, or maybe, you need a new car, whatever. Okay, Dean Legge Show wrapping up for Tuesday, October 2nd. We're not that far from Halloween.